Yeah, I've talked about the 10 ox herding pictures before. This was Ken, uh, Dan, and Joe for the Creativity 202 check-in for November 29th, 2023. So we were just talking about some health and focus protocols, talking about some breathing. And the technique that I've been using lately through the physical therapy is the 10 ox herding pictures. So they are a traditional Zen Buddhist related cycle of 10 states of mind that the Buddhists have associated with the normal process that your mind goes through trying to recover attention and focus and unity. And it's a predictable cycle. And when you go through that process, there's a really sharp focus. So what I'm doing on the treadmill is uh, like I spend 8 steps in each one of those states. And I remember what the pictures look like and I remember what the long commentary was. But what I'm doing is just repeating the title and feeling what it's like to be in that mental state for 8 steps, and then cycling almost like as a clock, and I visualize the hour hand going around the clock as I progress through those states. And so the first state is you are aware that the ox is not here, and so the ox represents our brute force mind, that gives us our animal energy, the passionate animal mind that's connected to survival and nature. So, this notion of getting yourself under control or managing that is managing the ox. So, we are ox herders in the sense that we're trying to manage our focus and our attention. And there's a thematic piece of traditional Chinese and Japanese art associated with Buddhism, the monkey and the ox. And you'll see a lot of statuary and paintings of monkeys riding a water buffalo, riding the ox. And it's a metaphor for the monkey mind trying to tame the ox, the brute force mind, which is kind of funny because the monkey's not a natural chief of staff. We spend time trying to manage the monkey mind, which is, well, if your monkey is undisciplined, that sort of translates to the ox being unsupervised and it just runs amok. And then the first step in the ox herding picture cycle is when you realize the ox is gone. Here I am just with this little monkey mind. Now suddenly, Jesus, where is my ox? So the first one is searching for the ox. So the key word is search. So when I'm on the treadmill, I will call up the picture of that search and how it feels, and I'll think of search 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the next one is sense. So now you can feel that the ox is out there tromping around in the underbrush. You can't see him yet, but you sense that in this whole process of fruitless searching, somehow you're getting closer to the ox. You can sense his presence. You can't see him yet, but you're getting closer. You can hear him snorting. You can see his footprints in the mud. So search for the ox, sense the ox. Then third step is you see the ox. There he is in all his power. Holy mackerel, look at him go. Completely free, running amok. Undisciplined, but powerful. So you're searching, you're sensing, you're seeing, catching the ox. Now you got your hands on him. Now what are you going to do? So you got your hands on him, you've caught him. Now you're going to tame the ox. Steady, big fella, easy. The Tennessee stud, I think of Doc Watson at that point. So that now we're at the fifth stage already. Now I'm taming the ox, and now we're going to come bring him back home. So the sixth stage is riding the ox. After he's tamed, I can now ride him. So stage 6, riding the ox. Me and the ox are one. Seventh stage, I forget that the ox is even there because I'm so connected to the ox that I'm just seeing myself looking at the world around me, and I'm being carried along by the ox, but I'm not even thinking about the ox. I have forgotten the ox. Stage 8, I have forgotten myself. That I've now become connected to the world around me, and it's less and less about me, and now I've even forgotten myself, and I'm just caught up in the beauty and the mystery of the details of the world around me. And that to me feels very much like the flow state, where you are still acting with intention, or the intention is acting through you without thinking. So you've forgotten yourself completely, but you're still aware of it. You know, there's still a vision or a tableau going on. So that's the eighth one, is you forget yourself. The ninth one is you completely lose the sense of detail, and you are in the source. So I feel that as white light of loving kindness in a warm cocoon, and just you're connected with everything, and there's no distinctions, no differentiations. It is just a state of pure consciousness, no details. So you're in the source. You've gone to that point of light, which is the source of all energy. So that's the ninth one. Now, in a lot of meditation techniques, that's the end state of, I'm trying to achieve that point of total consciousness and nirvana or whatever, loss of self and just complete oneness. In Zen Buddhism, they add a 10th. In their tradition is very practical in the world. There's a 10th one where you kind of wake up in the world, in the marketplace, and now you're surrounded by just normal life going on all around you, and now you're placed in there, but you're at a higher tone. You're one octave higher because you've traversed that circular staircase all the way up to, yeah, it's just normal living. That's all it ever was. That's all it ever is. Nothing magical, nothing mysterious, but you're so tuned in that it's a perfect moment of awareness of self and society and the people, and then you hold that state until you realize, you start looking at, hey, where's my ox? And then you notice he's gone. Now suddenly, oh, I don't have my ox anymore. Where did he go? At the end of the next cycle around, you always remember, oh, I've always had the ox. It's always been part of me. I never lost him, except when you you suddenly, being a monkey, forget all that and you say, oh, where's my ox? And now you're back in. So what I do is as I'm just kind of droning along in my, on the treadmill or the stair stepper, just trying to hit a rhythm, just correct, I find that optimum performance pattern. For me, it's 100 beats a minute on the stair stepper at 110 watts on that particular machine. It's a flywheel effect. So when I get it in that zone, I'm just right on target. My heart beats around 100 beats, and I'm hitting 100 cycles, and everything is correct. So I'll do 8 beats of the, searching, sensing, seeing, catching, taming, riding, forgetting self, forgetting ox, in the source, in the world. And then I just keep, cycling through that. And then after I do that, I will then do, 20 seconds of high intensity sprint. And then I get 20 of those, and then I kind of, as I'm trying to regulate back to steady state, I go through that mental process, and I can do that, in about a minute and a half is how that normally works out. because 8 stages and 10 seconds per stage is 80 seconds, and plus a little fudge factor in there. So I key that in, and that just lets the 20 minutes is just about a really good process. A lot of breathing, a lot of I can get about 10 cycles of the ox herding picture on there, and I actually have that that sort of image of the clock face and the pictures, and I'm gonna write a 1 page. This is for the creativity piece. So the 1 page artifact for that is going to be something like the 10 pictures, and then what the title is, what the feeling is, what are the key tasks, how does it start, how does it stop. When as you come to the end, step 7 and 8 of stage 1, I've been searching and I couldn't find him, but now I'm getting ready to start sensing him. So I'm leaving the stage of fruitless search, and now I'm getting the first hint that I'm getting nearer to the ox after all this aimless wandering around. So that's the transition state between 1 and 2. So I've become very interested in looking for the signs that tell me this is the end of one cycle, one phase, and the start of another one, which is nothing more than the space the end of one movement and the start of the second movement in Beethoven or anybody, or the exhaustion move at Z3 and supported spring, and now the R10 reverses, and now it goes through this process of acquiring the feeling of the new phase. It's now spring. What is that transition from winter to spring phase? Well, it feels like a doji at the end of a harsh winter, and so it's sort of that's the backdrop to the visualization of the 10 ox herding pictures is seeing that play out through the normal cycling of price. Before you get to a doji that reverses into the spring, you had to have a harsh winter. Otherwise, it's not the spring. It's just mumbling along. So there is that turns out to be a really good prep session to then start trading in the morning session. It turns out to be perfectly, you can't, I can't stop seeing all of those, those cycles and turning points. Well, the final thing I'll say on this is that I'll send you a link to, she's an Australian Buddhist monk who has recorded voiceovers on YouTube of hundreds of classical Asian philosophical and meditative texts of the Buddhists, the Taoists, the Confucianists, the Jains, everybody. And she's got a really nice series on the 10 ox herding pictures. Now, there's probably only 1,000 different versions of famous artists who have painted a series of them and then written commentaries on them. There's some famous ones from the 15th century that are really well done, plus a couple commentaries on those commentaries. And she reads them all. So she has one series where it takes her about 45 minutes to cover each one of the 10 pictures, because she reads the original commentary and then 2 and 3 more takes on it. And so that whole picture is a 45-minute walk. So it takes 2 full weeks to listen to one of those, to one chapter a night for an entire walk. But then she has another one where in 45 minutes, she covers all 10 pictures, and it's just the picture and then the original poem. And so that takes 45 minutes to get all 10, which is a nice executive summary. But then if you go deep and listen to the 45-minute pitch on all of it, it is extraordinary. Her pacing and tonality and the pauses are just magnificent. I listened to that so much that and then
Yeah, I'll look for that.
yeah.
I'm very interested.
So there's yeah. So that helps me get through the. Not only helps me get. I actually look forward to that part of the physical therapy. For the because it forces me in every 8 beats to have that key word. I got to be paying attention to that. Otherwise, I forget. Oh, where was I? Was I on 4 or 7, or did I miss it? So to complete a cycle, you got to be on that. You can't really. That's the only thing you can do at that speed at in 8 seconds to kind of hit the keyword, feel the feelings, and then look for something interesting. So that's sort of my work in progress, and I'm going to turn that into a one-page artifact that summarizes that whole process because I think there's something very useful in that whole discipline as a way of getting into the zero state. I consider as waking up in the marketplace at the 10th on the 10th ox herding picture, is having gone through. I'm searching. I've lost my mind. I'm not zero. No. So searching, sensing, seeing, catching, taming, riding, forget one, forget two, in the source, in the market, ready to work. Done. So that fast, the smell of coffee is like drinking coffee at some point. That's how fast I can get into the zero state now. So I have rendered it down into that level of artifact. A few weeks ago, I posted a flashcard on the 10 ox herding pictures, which kind of shows one of the more famous woodcut black and white impressionistic paintings on that. So anyway, that's my check in and my work in progress is the 10 ox herding picture. So um, there we are. I'll hit that. I'll give it to either one of you. Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, you touched just now on a lot of things that I touched on in the last few days as well, and I'm working on 10 and 11. But I also went back and reviewed some of the previous lessons, and just today I was working on my ready room. So it's precedent that you brought that up, and was able to actually create a whole slot in my daily routine to make it more poignant in my day, that the separation between all my morning stuff that I do from 4:30 until about 8:30 in the morning, and then just have a drop off and a shift point. I think that's going to be very useful to me. I have been attempting to do it periodically throughout the day, but I think a focused intention and meditation for a few minutes before I log into the trading software is a good way to go, even if I'm going to try to reset throughout the day. And I've had actually a remarkable couple of weeks. Um, and normally I wouldn't even trade on Thanksgiving week. I always just had a belief that it was too wonky to trade, and working with some of these systems and things has really been terrific for me. Um, Chapter 10, just kind of wrapping that up. I'm sorry, lesson 10, excuse me. Connecting to a higher power, really resonated with me, and everybody has their own way of connecting to their higher power. The meditation that you just described could be one of those, and I always get myself into ontological questions, and end up saying it doesn't matter, who created God and who created the person who created God. It really doesn't matter because it's all good and it's all useful. And then I also think about the collective wisdom of all of humanity as a higher power as well. And we're all tapping into it. We can do what we want with it. We can make whatever we want out of ourselves. And and that had me thinking a little bit about the oneness blessings that we used to do with Van and the groups. And that was sort of a collective wisdom thing. And what comes out of that is the question, is it true? And the answer is, I have no idea. But the next question is, does it work for me? And the answer to that is absolutely. So, I'm convinced that I won't ever really know exactly what's going on out there, but I do know that there is something for me to tap into that helps me on a daily basis, and whether my word is God or some other word for that, um, I sort of believe it's much the same. Um, and I'm going to pivot into a restory update real quick here before I talk about lesson 11 and a couple of things that came up for me in the last week. One was in talking about to a physician about my health. He brought up the analogy because we were talking about spirituality. He said, "Yes, we are, spiritual beings living a temporary human existence." He said, "Think of your body as a pet." And you are not your body, but you are your body because there's no separating you while you're here. And taking that perspective and looking at it as a pet, that it's there's proof in America that half of the people will give their pets their meds before they'll take their own meds these days. That's just human nature because they want to care for something. So, care for my body. And right now I'm kind of putting it through a little bit of extra work with this fasting. And whenever I get a little dizzy because I haven't eaten for 3 or 4 days, I just tap into that higher power and I visualize it coming in the top of my head. And it's amazing to me that it always stabilizes me. It always brings me back. Um, Another part of the restoring, I've been working on communicating with my kids, in particular my daughter, and wrote some pretty intense stuff that I did not share with her. But one thing I did every year when they were kids was I would share some of my goals as they applied to them. And I thought I would do that this year again and say, remember these things that you guys used to be annoyed at dad bringing up. But one of the things I always had on there was to spend good one-on-one time with each of my kids individually, and that'll be part of my year-end letter that I send out to them again. Um, and there's a couple of other elements to that, but I'll leave it at that right now. And then another re-story that kind of came to me was that I've had a strong goal to get myself back to beachfront living, and I'm a mile away from the beach. And going from here to the beach, the cost goes up about tenfold from where I'm sitting right now in that mile. And I was feeling a little bit greedy about that, but I told myself that it's really not about the oceanfront house. It's about sitting there in the evening, uh, listening to the waves and some music and relaxing and appreciating all the goodness. And I was still stuck on that, but what I then realized was it has to be big enough to have an excellent guest quarters that we can continuously have guests sharing this with. And kind of when I took on this sharing approach to that beachfront house, it resonated with me. It made me feel much better about that goal of getting back there. Um, and I think it's directly helped my trading by doing that. So with that, I'll just jump into chapter 11 or lesson 11, plunging into the unknown. Kind of a violent story about Sun Tzu in there. The most violent thing I've ever read, but it's all metaphors, anyways, I guess. So I don't imagine that he actually beheaded a few of the dames. Maybe he did.
Actually, that's it's a historical event.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Talk
it
about being
reminds
all
us of
in.
how brutal the world was not that long ago. Even 300 years ago, brutality was a part of everyday life. So, we're absolutely lucky to be living where we are and when we are. And I listened to a live interview with Elon Musk a couple hours ago on CNBC, and he was his normal, very direct self. And he himself said, yeah, in studying all of history and Nikolai Tesla and everyone else, he feels this is probably the most exciting time in world history to live. So I'm grateful for that. Um, we're going to have to be competitive to stay ahead of the machines and the bots and all the things that are coming along. But a big part of this lesson is assigning some trade patterns and asking others to trade them. And my son Kurt has been resisting the WMB3, and I'm pitching that to him as just sort of an early entry to the best SSC of the day. And I'm going to try to make these rules very straightforward for him and see if I can get him to trade that, or at least call his first SSC of the day, WMB3 on a morning hook somewhere.
Yeah,
And then I have
let
another
me just
friend.
say, yeah, let me just make sure there's a note there that he should be comparing the idea of a harsh winter, the unambiguous harsh winter of the SSC is a principle. You know, it's a criteria for the SSC. In the WMB3, all it takes is oversold on Williams percent R. So there's kind of three cases for that. One of them is right from the opening, if it's a gap down from yesterday, it's going to be a harsh winter because the size of the gap contributes it. So that's easy. And so when it reverses and you get the M and the B, you get a really good entry, usually sooner than the SSC. The second
Okay.
case, the second case is if it's at some time during the day and there is a harsh sell-off, you know, more than a frog box, and it stays oversold for a while, that'll when you look at the price, well, yeah, clearly that's a harsh winter, and the WMB3 is going to get me in a little bit sooner than the SSC. But and so you might say, well, why do I need the SSC at all? I'll just trade every WMB3 that there is. It's because of the third case of a WMB3, and that is after a period of sideways quiet channel of 10 bars where it just was kind of monkeying around, you get one little blip down, and you'll get it. The W on Williams percent R has been triggered. But if you didn't have that and you were just watching that little price caterpillar crawling along sideways, you would say, "Oh, it stepped in a hole." That was not a harsh winter. So in that case, you can end up getting some bad signals or low payoff signals because the W hits, and then you'll see an M, and then to see the B, and you get into this, and you're still in the chop. So, in my view, the WMB3 came about as a way to quantify the morning hook, which was explicitly associated with gap down, quick sell off, and then started to reverse right away. Done. No worries. Because it's already in play. The size of the gap tells you that this is an extraordinary event. So you're going to get an extraordinary follow through when it recovers. Later on, that became a way periodically through the day to find moments of how to get in on what we would see as an SSC after a harsh winter, a clear sell off. But just be mindful that, you know, we saw this a lot with Wojcik's trading over the last year, that there were a lot of times in that middle, see, like from, you know, 3 hours into the day through the lunchtime, there would be W's in the Williams percent R, but there was no follow through because it was not really in play. It had been just drifting along sideways, and one little blip down, one trade that triggered at a low price would launch you into a WMB3. So when you look at the relationship now between the WMB3 and the SSC, 2 out of the 3 times it's going to be a front run of an SSC. But make sure that as you look at price, you say, oh, yeah, that's clearly, you know, a harsh winter. That thing really did have multiple candles on the way down, and now it's triggering it. In fact, you kind of know that the best one of those WMB3s is when you don't get an immediate reversal. You get the first leg, let's say it breaks out of out of a sideways quiet channel, and then it breaks down for one leg, and you look down and say, oh, it's the W, it's oversold. But the thing is, it's only 1/3 of the way through the selling that it's going to do. So it's oversold. So you go up and you start looking at the MACD. Well, the MACD histogram won't, while that thing is selling off, MACD histogram is not going to tick up until all of that selling has really been processed and it genuinely is starting to turn. And so you may have 10 bars, 15 bars while you're waiting for the MACD histogram to tick up. You know, especially after a nice run up, and now the MACD is in the green, and now it goes to oversold, but it has to process all the way down through the green to the 0 line, then all the way into the red, and then it upticks. And so that might be 20 bars later, but that MACD kept you from the premature entries. And if it doesn't, you may actually see that, hey, I never had a candle breakout anyway. That's actually you stalking the turning point in the WMB3. That the MACD uptick, now I'm zeroed in, and you've been stalking that thing for 10 or 15 bars, and then when it hits, boom, you're ready to go. Because you've been trailing that candle breakout the whole way, probably. And then MACD turns, uptick, good, and then we're off and running. So anyway, those, I wanted to say that while we were on that topic, because it's hard enough to learn the two individual patterns. And then if we start associating them, there's a lot of overlap, but it's not identical. And that's why I like looking at both of them.
Okay.
Because
Right.
Just because and I'll take the first one that triggers. You know what I mean? It'll be like, hey, the WMB3, it met the criteria and it was a harsh winter, but it's going earlier and the SSC is a couple bars away. But if it's a WMB3, I'll just take it, because I traded that way for 20 years before I did the SSC, the formal definition of the SSC. So WMB3 was my style 25 years ago, and I just always have kept it. It's just very easy for me to see that as it happens. So anyway, I wanted to get that on camera, on film, before I lost the bubble on that.
Good. And then so many times that could lead to stop and reverse if it evolves into a collapsing dragon
Oh, for
move.
sure.
You know,
And in
um,
that case, and in that case, you always want to prefer the thing that has fallen the most, because it's in play in that direction. It's easier to believe in the failure going the other way, the bigger the original fail was, because that has real power, and that keys you right into the logic and psychology of the collapsing dragon pattern. That the bigger the fear, the longer it lasts. You know, it
yeah.
regenerates that fear very, very quickly.
And I'll say one bias that I've realized as a result of the creativity coursework was that if I have 4 long trades in the morning that work, I have a long bias all day. Even if something is going to shit, I'm still looking to go long on it. And I think I've pretty much cured myself of that and become much more agnostic by being able to go to a
Yeah.
zero state repeatedly and
Well, I'll tell you what
just
helps me on
forcing
that.
some trades.
Let me just say, and if you have to write this on a sticker and put it on your screen, do it. The VWAP magnet. Just remember that in that last 90 minutes or the last 2 hours of the day, and so we're talking about specifically day trading here,
Uh-huh.
But that I never lose sight of where the VWAP is and what it's doing, because that's where those guys have to settle up each day at the end of the day. The day traders that were trading with a lot of leverage, which is why you're getting those volatile intraday moves, they've stretched it as far up as they can go. And I had a long side bias all the way up there. Invariably, about 2 hours before the close, it's like you can hear the flipping of a switch, and boom, they're looking at can I squeeze any more out of this, or how do I start winding this goddamn thing down? I got to go in for a
Uh,
pit stop and get recalibrated, and the base station is back there at the VWAP. Now, if that price is stretched well above the VWAP and it goes all the way back, then all you saw was an intraday trade, nothing special to see. They ran it all the way up and then it drifted all the way back, and there was nobody else trying to posture for tomorrow, front running tomorrow's move. But if that thing moved way up and it only gets halfway back to the VWAP, and guys are willing to hold that price above the VWAP overnight, that's a good chance that tomorrow they're going to try to push that again, and they want to hold that, and they're looking for a gap up. That's one of my clues for deciding whether or not to hold that position. So if I have market money in hand and the VWAP magnet only gets halfway back, and it wasn't like panic selling, it's like it's stable and everything is just, they're going to hold that above the VWAP. Don't be surprised if tomorrow there's a big gap up and then they start selling their inventory into that until it comes all the way back to the VWAP. As long as it's above the VWAP, it's still so. And I say that because there's about 3 or 4 trades in today's hybrid swing where that exactly happened. It was something that grinding pretty well, and it stayed above the VWAP, and I held it overnight, and there was a big gap and a run up, and then a harsh sell off, and I cut out of that, and that thing drifted all the way back, and then went sideways all day. It happened like 3 or 4 times today, and that's on my mind. So, one of the ways to overcome the enthusiasm for having a long side bias on a day that it worked is to remember that last 90 minutes, there's a VWAP magnet trade in there, and you got to preserve all the stuff that you just worked so hard to get. It can disappear pretty quick, and it's literally flipping a switch. And in that last 30 minutes, it's not unusual to just see it just crater all the way back to the VWAP, and you say, well, of course that's what it does. That's one way to be on guard against your own natural bias of enthusiasm. That's an example of carrying positive emotions into the next trade rather than being in the zero state. In the zero state, I don't identify with it, and I think of Master Shi's. I recognize the bias. I account for it, I accept it, I acknowledge it, I investigate it by framing, and then I don't identify with the bias. So done. I'm now back in the zero state. That's from his little walking meditation on Let It Rain. Recognize, aware, investigate, non-identification. And I've listened to him say that so many times I can even say it with his accent. Non-identification, you know. Let
And
it
I'm
be.
sorry, what was the
Oh,
name on that one?
Master Shi, he does a TED talk for 18 minutes on. I'll send you the. It's one of the lessons in here. It
Okay,
may not have gotten to it yet. I forget which lesson it is.
all
It's
right,
really good. It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, but
okay,
I'll
good
send you the
stuff.
link. It's worth listening to, since you're kind of in that mindset right now.
Definitely. And really, that's a good spot for me to wrap it up. Um, with that, I'll say aho.
What you got for us, Dan?
Oh, there's just me. So, well, uh, I've been doing a lot of the same things, trying to get stay in the zero state. Trading went pretty well for me this month. It was actually, I guess, my best month, except maybe May or June or something like that. And I think it was better. But my stats for the hybrid swing trading were, about 0.35 expectancy. So I've heard you call that production ready.
Yeah.
It was interesting though, because I allowed the 3-minute trades as well as the 30-minute trades, in that same histogram. And actually the 3-minute trades are doing a little better, but some of the 30-minute trades, if they can last overnight and get into a good run the next day, they can generate pretty good results. So anyway, that's encouraging. I think I'm going to go off the simulator, which in TradeStation seems to behave exactly the same way as the small live trade. So I'm going to go off the simulator into the small live trades in December. It was interesting. I have a whole process of preparing for the day and framing, and I track whether I do better when I have have intentionally planned to trade one day and then I do, or if I do better when I kind of happened to be on my computer. I didn't plan to trade that day, but I got an alert that was left over from the day before, or maybe it's an alert on the SPY because I'm always tracking that anyway. If I do better with the impulsive trades, or I do better with the planned trades. And actually, I don't do too bad with the impulsive trades because I seem to be getting into the zero state before I take those too. I'm not making the impulsive trades are not mistakes. And I think that's just because I've had enough practice that I can go from 0 to 50 in a minute or two. I'm not messing up my order. I'm not messing up my frame. I'm not doing anything stupider than I would do in a planned session on average, I guess. So I'm pretty happy about all that. Let's see. Also, kind of on the personal level, spiritual stuff, the meditation. I've been listening to Sri Muji. He does a lot of meditation videos, and I have a day to the 10-minute ones, because in 10 minutes I can get myself all calmed down and clear-headed. And I also sometimes do a meditation where I connect with God as I understand him, either to ask a question or just hang out kind of in the belief that we're all one. And a lot of times I do these things when I wake up at 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning. It calms the monkey down so I can get back to sleep. And so with all that and some other things I'm doing, I'm in really good mental state most of the time. But it's interesting how something can happen that can just kind of knock you right off that pedestal. So today I was going to the bank online to pay my bills, and I see this check for $12,600 that I didn't write. Oh man, somebody stole that money. And so I have to report it to the bank, and they say, okay, well, our investigation will take 90 days, and then we'll tell you whether you get your money back. So I was a little upset about that. And my wife was coming back from the airport, and I had to pick her up at the train. She calls me up, tell me that she flight had landed, and I'm already into one beer. I'm kind of really wanting to act up, and have more beers and just be a the bastard, I put a leash on that and did okay, but I wasn't able to do a couple things that I'd wanted to get done, sort of in the uh, self-improvement, financial self-improvement too area, which kind of brings me to the work in progress Creativity 202 content. And if I might share my screen, I've got another mind map for you guys. I'll just share the mind map. I don't think I'll share anything else. So this is going back to the lesson 6 and 7, the restoring. Although I have been looking at some of the later lessons, and actually I've got kind of a list of exercises I want to do. And by the way, I also thought I might bring in a few things from Charlie Munger, who passed away.
Yeah.
Which are just thought exercises that he liked to do that are kind of very similar to what we're doing in Creativity 202. So I've got kind of ideas for other exercises I want to do, but this restoring is taking me a while. So I walked through it with you all before. It was really neat to think about 3 possible futures, and it really turned into many possible futures along 3 arcs. I called them the trader arc, the writer arc, and the global traveler arc. These are the things that I really you're really passionate about doing, I guess. And I tried to imagine I could change anything if I wanted to. And the one assumption I wanted to assume I was still married, to the same person. I didn't want anything different in that department. But so I looked at the trader, and I saw 3 possible futures there, where I just keep doing what I'm doing, but do better, but part-time, not really put in all that much effort into it, I guess, so that I'd have time for other things. And then, the other one, and I kind of looked at, what would that look like? Why would I want to do that? What would it look like? Where would I, where would I be doing that? And I looked at, doubling my portfolio in 5 years, and Ken pointed out that was only maybe, what'd you say, 15% a year?
Yeah.
And in fact, a year or 2 ago, I'd put together a financial calculator for myself where I looked at all my buckets of my portfolio and said, well, if this one got 2% and that one got 30%, how much would I have to have in each one to average out at 12%? So I just have to up that to 15%. Of course, maybe easier said than done, but and then just for kicks, I threw in Billionaire Trader to see if that would resonate, and then I looked at some of my other arcs, the writer arc. I could just be kind of a blogger and hobby writer like I am now. I could publish some books, or I could actually get some kind of paid writing job. So I looked at all that, and I looked at the global traveler arc, where I just traveled to my basic bucket list, Africa, Safari, Australia, New Zealand, India, Argentina. Those are going back to Canada, Alaska, Greece, and Italy. Or maybe I get paid to travel, or maybe I even become an expatriate of some sort. So I looked at all that stuff, and Ken, you'd suggested that I kind of consider the different personas in these futures that I would be, and interview them. So I did a meditation one day where I actually tried to do that, and I came up with these. I think of them as composite arcs, um, and they were three of those. One that I called the more actualized me. The other one I called the philanthropist, and the other one I called the adventurer. And I guess I have to expand the whole thing again real fast here, because these composite arcs are linked up with different aspects of the trader arc and the writer arc and the global traveler arc. So for example, the more actualized me would he'd probably want to double the current portfolio at least, and he'd definitely want to do the basic bucket list, and he'd probably want to do more serious writing, on Medium, write his memoirs, maybe even publish a book, but definitely those. And then, the philanthropist, he'd be maybe even into the billionaire trader, can give more. The adventurer, well, what happened to him? He's supposed to have some lines to the, getting paid to travel or having a job, as some kind of foreign correspondent or something like that, really doing some adventurous stuff. So anyway, I kind of did the a little analysis of what would each one of these personas have to give up from where I am now in order to accomplish these things. So more actualized me had to give up system hopping and trading and in life to improve focus, vision, and performance. He had to complete his spiritual transformation, become self-reliant and decisive about following his passion, and gain an unshakable belief in his success. The writer adventurer, he had to give up trading anything other than the long-term and option selling systems because those kinds of things, you just wouldn't have time, be on the road too much. And he had to go back to IT, AI, and cybersecurity in order to have, an area where people would pay him to do anything, or that's what he thought. And so I was thinking, should the more actualized me, which is the persona I'm kind of gravitating to, should he, try to pick up more of the stuff that the adventurer wanted to do? Could he go a little further down the adventurer path without losing focus? And for now, I want to stay focused. I want that writer adventurer. I'll make this a little bit bigger. I want on the be, have, do, or be, do, have, complete the spiritual transformation, become more focused and intentional, be more decisive about following passions and unshakable belief in self. So, some of these decisive things, like definitely, buy a recreational vehicle and drive across the country, travel to the whole bucket list, double the portfolio, double giving. And then I was reading about Charlie Munger. I was listening to a book about Charlie Munger. I really was taken with Charlie Munger's notion of worldly wisdom and being familiar with all these different models that you could apply to different situations. It was kind of like system thinking, really, which is sort of by another name, right? But I would like to be more worldly wise. That would sort of help all these other things. And in terms of what I want to have, obviously a recreational vehicle is something to have, but it's something I want because of where it'll take me, of a way to be. So really, most important thing to have is an amazing family. And then beyond that, kind of whatever he needs for what he's doing. So that's kind of vague, but um, I'm leaning that way, I guess. And the last thing I'll say about that is I created a whole other map. I noticed that, and maybe it's something about a rut that I've been in since the pandemic, since I kind of almost retired, where I was just kind of waiting for my wife to retire, or waiting for something, not really making big decisions. And I noticed that just a lot of things were kind of piling up, I wasn't making decisions. And of course, that's not good. Maybe you remember Napoleon Hill writing about his interview with Andrew Carnegie, who had the stopwatch under the desk and invited him to do the project that made Napoleon Hill the powerhouse he became. But he didn't know it, but he had 60 seconds to decide. His life like that, but yeah, it's not good to be taking too long to make your decisions. So I happy to say that I got a bunch of things in the done and or decided not to category. I had about 10 things, and I still have two big ones, but I decided on this. It's just going to be in the next few weeks, and I decided on this. So I'm kind of clearing the plate for all these decisions, and I think that'll help me, get the focus to really double down on the transformation that I'm working on. Even if I do get knocked off my pedestal by someone stealing $12,000 or the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune from time to time, I'll still be right back on that and right back going in the right direction, and be more focused and intentional with an unshakable belief in what I'm doing, and get those decisions done, clear the deck, pursue my passions. So I think I kind of got a lot out of the restorying, and I think I can kind of leave it here for now. And that's probably enough for this discussion this evening.
That's pretty cool stuff right there. The adopting the different personas. That was sort of something that came up for me when I was doing the life audit theater process in my in the prep and the recovery from the surgery. Was playing different roles and interviewing them on stage, mm-hmm. for the record, in front of an audience, and then being decisive about how to characterize it, how to write the script, how to to get to closure with each person. And the sense of urgency was, look at all the people in the audience who are patiently waiting for their turn. I've invited them here to have this conversation, so I can't be monkeying around, indecisively on the stage. I gotta get through this. We got work to do, and I owe them that, to be decisive and then own the decisions and the results. So that was the genesis of that thought experiment. I'll let you know how that tips products thing is. The reason I was thinking about you was, you've been talking about maybe reactivating your writing. And one of the things that I noticed going through her pilot program, I did the one that she's going to teach in January. I went through the pilot program for that already, and I noticed a really powerful reframing in my own thinking about the things that I know and the value that I place on them. And the idea of the tips booklet, was to crystallize. I I mean, we just wrote that book, 316 pages of foundational trading, but I think there's about 5 tips booklets, each one with 52 tips that are embedded in that or could be extracted from that, each which is even a more concise standalone artifact, immediately actionable. And so the thought process of who I'm writing that for was the big reframing. Like I had started taking that workshop as a way to say, hey, let me write a 52 tip booklet, a little ebook that I could give away. And then that might encourage somebody who aligns with my thinking to become a high ticket, client someday. They might progress to buy the book, to become a patron, to take a course, maybe to be a coachee and just part of the community of practice. And now, there's a 20-year relationship that comes out of what started off as a little booklet that I would just give away. And she caused me to rethink how I look at that and say the booklets that she sells, she sold over 2 million units. And the people she's selling them to are like a trade association where a person is trying to provide good value to 5,000 members of their trade association. And look, they come across your booklet and now they have 52 things that they can, one tip a week that they can send to their people, and you've solved the problem that they had, which was they want to give high quality, they want to vet high quality stuff to give to their people. So in this case, so they write a purchase order for 5,000 copies of the booklet to give away. So the booklet could be its own cost or revenue center, a line of operation. And secondarily, that's 5,000 more people in that trade association that might be 1% might be interested in trading, and 20% of the 1% might actually have the skills needed. So 1/5 of 1%. So 1% of 5,000 is 50. 20% of 50 is 4. 10. It could be 10 people that buy my book and one person takes a course. So the reframing was that you're writing a tip that will do no harm from your expertise. You know that there's really a whole book that it takes to explain it to the professional level of detail, but and so it takes a lot to write a book, as you know, so we don't write it. But the booklet is a standalone artifact. That anyway, so the idea of condensing and focusing in on the tips, and then the practical exercises she was giving us to do that, and then the wordsmithing and searching for the right words and all that stuff was a really powerful way to start thinking about the body of knowledge. So, for example, the 75 skills that we've identified for book number 2 for the job book, well, that's really going to start off, every one of them is going to be a tip, which is 2 sentences, less than 50 words, and a positive action word that says this is what you should do. You should use system thinking to have a dynamic view of a chaotic world. And then the second sentence is how to do that or why you should do it. The how or the why. Well, systems thinking allows you to adapt to changing worlds so that you can feel the flow and the energy and its progress over time. That's why. Okay, that's a tip. Now there's there's a 1-page article that gets fleshed out, but that's in a series of essays on a blog, or that's a book, is the collection of the 75 essays that flesh out the 75 tips. But the 75 tips is a booklet that it's out there doing work for you. So now you don't have to take her course to figure that out. I'm going to do it with my brother and Phil and Griff because I want us to use that mentality in our little circle of excellence there, because we're going to write 10 books. And each of those next 9 books is going to start with a tips booklet as the structure, which will then get elaborated into the book and into workshops and all that other stuff. So
Yeah.
the other reason I'm going to have the 4 of us take that course in January is that there will be 15 people in the course, all of whom are going to become new additions to our expanded network of contacts. Well, as an example, Griff and I sat in her little 1-hour free session yesterday, and I met a retired Navy master petty chief, or whatever they are, like a senior NCO. And she's got a little home-based business where she helps people get organized. And I told her, look, what I want you to do, Navy veteran, is to write me a booklet of 52 tips for how to organize your home office as a trader in order to turn that into a more business-like operation. So become an expert in that, and then give me a booklet for 52, and I'll buy 200 of them, and that way I can throw a little money at her and as a veteran, and this it solves a problem for me, which is how to help people that want to transition towards trading from home to think about that in a practical, organized way to set up a home office with some of the, the do's and don'ts and things. And she's a home organizing and an office organizing expert. So there you are. Well, I don't know who the other 15 people are going to take the course in January, but the possibilities for that are going to be large. Some of them might be successful business people that are trying to figure out where to put their money or who to put their money with. And I'm not going to manage their money, but I know people that do, that I can vouch for. So there's that. Hey, I just want to. So anyway, that's why I sent you that invitation.
Mhm.
And now that you've heard that, you can, at a minimum, everybody that I sent that email to, even if you don't take the course, there's no judgment. We're gonna develop things like that, like some of the lessons that you put into, insights into your course. Hey, you got a wealth of super trader insights. Both of you monkeys. Where's your list of 50 actionable insights for non-super traders that came out of the due diligence that you put in the salt mines? Do you want everybody to have to go through the salt mines like you did? No. But you can tell them 52 things that won't hurt them. Think about 4 categories with 13 items, a baker's dozen. So figure out what your top 4 categories are. Oh, plan, prepare, execute, assess. Done in 1. Give me 13 tips in a bullet form. Done. Do what Catherine Crucial did. She drew 50 sketches. She's not an artist. She said, "Oh, this is embarrassing." I said, "Just sketch them." We did an ebook together. I'm going to revitalize that one. Anyway, I'm getting the first 3 or 4 guys. The pro money managers have come on board and are uploading their videos and lessons into the research weekend. You guys are both in that area. Jim Carroll's going to do one next Friday, not this Friday, but Friday, December 8th. And Bill Scheit's going to do one this Sunday. So make sure you go to their 2 sections and listen to their video and say, either post a question in the discussion board in that lesson in Rizuku, or send me the question to ask them. And I'm going to do a Q&A session with each of those guys. But the one from Jim Carroll is gold. I mean, gold. He's doing a volatility breakout system modeled on the principles of Bill Scheit's PRX system. And Jim Carroll's managing a lot of money professionally for 30 years, and he's been doing volatility trading systems and reporting on those on the live research weekends periodically. This one looks really, really good, simple, and he's one of the guys as a pro money manager. When guys got, hey Ken, I want you to manage my money. I said, no, you want Jim Carroll to manage your money, or Matt Richardson. You know, that's why I like having those guys contribute, because it really shows what professionalism looks like, and they got good ideas. Plus, they're really good, humble students, and they really have stretched me as a teacher. So I enjoy working with them. Anyway, Jim just uploaded his stuff today. Take a look at it. He's going to be. I will publish the calendar of when guys are doing their video, and I owe you feedback, Dan, on the when to do your. I think you gave me some times.
Yeah, I was.
Sometime.
I'm ready to do it this weekend. If,
Okay, I can do it
if you want.
Yeah, I can do it this weekend. What I could do it like Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
If any of
That'll
that
work.
works. How's that work for you? Like
works.
let's just say 2:00 Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m.
Okay.
Central, and then we'll record. That gives me a time to go all the way through your stuff and get ready to ask some good questions.
Okay.
But I was going to say, I wanted to highlight for you Bill Scheit. So anyway, Bill Scheit's going to give his presentation. I remember now what I did was he's going to give his Sunday morning at 9 Central during the Foundation's check-in, because I want all the Foundation's guys to hear what he's talking about. With he's going to brief his long-term trading strategy, his version of the blended monthly rebalancing, and some other things. So he's going to actually give his presentation and then do Q&A on Sunday morning at 9 during the Foundation.
Okay.
So I wanted to give you the heads up on that.
Are these all at the same link?
Yeah, it's
that
in the Rizuku course,
Yeah.
the research to 2023.
Yeah, I know where the presentations are, but I don't know where the live events in this same link.
Yeah,
that
this
were in
yeah,
here?
yeah, this link here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put that on the
All right,
calendar.
I'm gonna stop this one and get the recording stopped. Got some folks getting ready to show up for the nightly, so we'll get this revisited. And then Joe and Dan, I sent you the links to the 10 ox herding pictures, and then Master Shi. Make sure you copy the chat.
Oh, yeah,
Those are
sure.
good. That's good stuff.
Let me get that.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, I'll catch you soon. Cheers.
Copy. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Mhm.
Right.